And we are live. Thanks so much for joining Civitasolis today for our talk on staying inspired during these quarantimes. We're just going to jump right into things and we're going to talk about how we are staying inspired individually, both musically and non-musically. So why don't we start with you, Bridget?
All right, sounds good. Thanks, Lara. Thanks everybody for joining us today. So musically, how I'm staying inspired. When I first came home, I took a few days off, and then I said enough was enough, and I swore that I would practice for at least 3 hours every weekday, and at least 4 hours on the weekends in total. It didn't matter to me what time of day that was. I can annoy my parents practicing at 10 o'clock. They don't really care that much. But so in order to keep my routine and my schedule, I found that the best thing to do was to practice scales and etudes, and that gave me sort of a sense of normalcy, especially now with classes being over and having no lessons. I know I can gauge my etudes and my scales a lot better than I can gauge solo repertoire and stuff like that. So I've been really keeping up with that and moving forward in the books, and I'm continuing sometimes to send videos to Professor Kieseker so that I can keep moving forward in the etude books and he can give me some feedback. And then I've also been practicing some other stuff for fun, solo works I haven't played or haven't practiced in a while, trying to set future goals for myself for when things go back to somewhat normal in the fall. And then non-musically, which has probably been more enjoyable and taking up more of my time, I've been enjoying spending time with my mom and dad, playing games with them, reading, taking long walks while listening to audiobooks, which I really enjoy. Running every day and sort of just hanging out and relaxing. So that's what I've been up to.
What's your favorite audiobook so far?
Oh, let's see. I've been listening to this one. It's really long. I can't even remember what it's called now. It's from the author of Eat, Pray, Love. I think it's called I can't remember what it's called, but it's pretty good. It's like 20 hours long, so it's taking up a lot of time. It's a little weird, but it's good.
Nice. Luis, let's move over to you. How have you been staying inspired?
Okay, thank you, Lara. Hi, everyone. So I want to start off by saying that I came to Colombia looking to spend only 4 days of my spring break here, and then wanting to go back to the States for all the commitments I had. Then, as it is not a secret for everyone, all the events got canceled, my country got closed, so that's how I have stayed here for 2 months. Also, I didn't come fully prepared for this, and I didn't bring the equipment I required to make new reads. But thankfully, I brought about 40 reads, all in different stages of the process, that have made it possible for me to finish my lessons of the semester via Zoom, also practice. And just like Bridget mentioned, I also took some days off and then came back to my routine, which is hard for me to do. And I have been able to focus a lot on fundamentals and ethics. And also a couple of days ago, I made a list of some topics or ideas of, for example, like music theory that I'm not feeling so comfortable with. And I started just like reading and watching videos about it. And even though I miss school, not having the pressure helps me enjoy of this learning process on my own even more. And also getting to spend this unexpected time with family, doing simple things like praying or watching a movie together, which is something that I normally don't get to do because my parents are usually really busy with work. These are things that are really meaningful for me. Also have been able to go, oh, sorry, you were gonna say?
Yeah, sorry, I was just gonna say lots of family time. That's really meaningful for a lot of people during this unexpectedly. Really beautiful, I feel like.
Yeah, it's really nice. Also, like, I'm able to go like more into detail of what I'm learning. And for example, my sister, which has been playing the oboe for almost 3 years, I'm able to teach her so many things that I have learned through my experience playing the oboe for almost like 12 years. And it feels really good because I know I'm making it easier on her, like this process of learning music and learning the oboe. So it's something that I can speak for her. I'm sure that it's inspiring both of us. Also, I can talk to her, without so many distractions. And for instance, with my parents, I'm able to reconnect more with them and get their wisdom and advice about decisions and just like future plans in general. So that's what I have been up to these days.
How long has your sister been playing oboe?
Oh, like 3 years. We tried
Okay,
to start her like even younger than me to see
to see how it
if
went.
it, yeah, yeah.
Nice.
Luis, do you make reads for her?
I don't like to. The things that I did, like I had her play on my reeds before and then her teacher, because so there are different styles of reed making. For instance, the American style of reed making is completely different to the European, and she plays on European, and you have to adjust so many things like embouchure. And then her professor got mad at me. I mean, not really mad, but she was like, hey, like now you're playing with your flat chin. And I mean, basically the American scrape makes it like you want to play like more relaxed. And yeah, it was messing up her embouchure. So that's why I stopped. And now I'm looking forward because her professor is gonna send her like 3 reads. So yeah.
Oh. Did
so
you
she's gonna
switch?
be able to play more.
Did you switch to? You switched to the American style of reads for your undergrad, right?
Yes. In 2014, I went to the States to start my undergrad. That's when I switched to the American style of oboe playing. Yeah.
Nice. Cool. Oh wait, did you want to say anything about non-musically, or did we get to that?
Oh yeah, I covered that.
Oh, okay, awesome.
The family time and everything.
That's right. Well, let's move along to what Amy's been up to these days.
Yeah. Hey guys. So I mean, like everyone else, like Luis just said, we were kind of expecting just to be off for like a week or two, and then all of a sudden things got thrown off for much longer. So I've just been kind of looking at this as an opportunity to work on a lot of projects that I had been neglecting before, because I didn't have a lot of time when I was finishing my doctoral treatise, and thankfully I graduated, so I'm done with that. Got to graduate via Zoom University style, so that was always that was really interesting. Non-musically, I've just been doing a lot of reading, specifically some books by David Goggins. The one I would recommend if you guys want to start is Can't Hurt Me. It's a book about how Navy SEALs learn to overcome challenges and develop a mental toughness to be able to like be the best in the world at what they do. Another thing I've been doing is building some websites. Obviously the Civitasolis website, check us out, www.civitasolisquintet.com. I also have a percussion duo, so I've been building a website for us as well. I've been getting back into running, been training to try and get up to a straight 10K. Right now I cannot run a straight 10K, but we're getting there. Watching a lot of documentaries, different ones, but just for inspiration. The documentaries I watch usually just have in common that it's about people who are kind of masters at their craft and who are super dedicated to their art. My favorites are First Position. It's a ballet documentary. Follows a bunch of kids through the process of training for a big competition where they can get scholarships and they can get places in local ballet in major actually ballet companies. Another one I really like is Somm. It's about sommeliers, which are just wine experts. And it follows them through the process of training for this master exam that they have to take, and they have to know all these things about wine theory and the history of wine and the locations. And they have to do blind testing where they have to sniff and then test the wine and drink it a little bit. And what they do is they have to be able to narrow it down to the region of the world, the specific vineyard, and the year that it was made, and the type of wine. So, and actually very few people pass the exam. So they stay up studying. They study like 12 hours a day to pass this exam. Of course, Jiro Dreams of Sushi, which like a lot of people I'm sure have watched. I love that one. I've watched that one so many times. And then Free Solo, which is about free climbing. So
I've seen that one.
Yeah, it's kind of scary, but it's this guy, Adam, who was the first ever to free solo El Capitan, which for those who know Max really well, was the Mac background a few generations ago. So he basically just like goes through the process of how he plans out his climbs, because free climbing is climbing without a rope. So it's obviously very dangerous. So you have to plan every aspect of the climb so that you don't fall and die, essentially. But National Geographic followed him around while he was doing that. And then just for fun, I've been playing some video games, which I really haven't had a lot of time to do during my doctorate. I am currently trying to 100% complete Breath of the Wild, which is a Zelda game on master mode. So
awesome. We actually have a question for you, Amy.
yeah.
From David Leach, one of my friends. He's a clarinetist too.
Oh,
and
cool.
he says, "Hey guys, thanks for hosting such a fun discussion. Amy, what are some of your favorite things you've learned from the David Goggins book? Have they informed the way you practice at all?"
Yeah, I mean, I think David Goggins, a lot of his and other Navy SEAL things is basically just like, you are accountable for yourself. Like, your successes and your failures are due to your actions every day. He does something that I really like called the accountability mirror. And so when he was first starting out, he was actually like over 300 pounds when he decided to join the Navy SEALs. He just decided that he was tired of the way he was living life, and he wanted to turn his life around and become something different. So he created this thing called the accountability mirror, where he would look himself in the mirror and he would write on Post-its his goals and where he saw himself currently and where he wanted to be. And he would put Post-its on, and he would talk himself through that process like every day. Or if he reached a new goal, like say his goal was to lose 50 pounds, he lost 50 pounds, he would take that Post-it down and put up a new one because he now had a new goal, you know, so that kind of thing. I don't have it as an accountability mirror, but I love Post-its. I actually like just have like a ton of Post-its, but
Nice.
so I do write on Post-its my goals, like and put them on my wall near where I practice, so that I can constantly be reminded, like, one thing I'm working on right now is making sure that I never leak air when I play. So I have don't leak air, corners in, things to help me remember that on top of the wall where I practice.
There is something really satisfying about, I don't know if you guys do this, but like either whether it's a list that you're putting a check when you finish a goal, or whether it's Post-its. My sister has done that as well, like Post-its on the wall, like, oh, is that your list?
There we go.
Make sure you're productive during quarantine list.
Nice. Yeah, I have like a thing on the fridge right now. I haven't written on it in a few days. I need to get back to that.
Yeah, Lara.
Jeez. Okay. Cool. Let's move on to Beth. How have you been inspired musically and non-musically?
Hey guys. So I am just kind of hanging out here in Tallahassee. I took a couple days off after the semester ended to just kind of, clear my head, get reset. Like Amy, I attempted to play some video games. I thought I'd try something new. And then I realized that I'm terrible at it because my siblings always hog the video games. So that didn't last very long. But otherwise, I've just been kind of trying to get some work done around the apartment, do some cleaning, feel a little bit more human again. Been trying to, try some new things. I've done a lot of baking. I discovered how to make focaccia bread, which is quite fun and very easy. And then, I'm trying to just spend more time outside. The weather's so nice right now. So I've just been, taking little walks. Something that kind of struck me, like now that all the gyms are closed, I found it kind of hard to just be active because you guys know I can't walk very far. So I've had to kind of get really creative with ways to exercise. So I've gotten into those super corny workout videos. You should try it. It's really fun. It's even more fun when you FaceTime with a friend so you can laugh at each other. So I've been doing that. It's really entertaining. I'm not gonna lie. So if you need, to kill an hour, that's a good way to do it. But musically, like I said, I gave myself a couple breaks, and then I've started up again, and I've just been doing like several shorter practice sessions throughout the day. I find that's kind of more productive, and it just makes the time go faster for me than just sitting in one place for 3 hours. So that kind of helps. I've also been just talking with a lot of, music colleagues about future plans. I have like a couple, little duo recitals, performances in the works. I've been kind of planning for my own, chamber recital, and just planning, some outside stuff like what we're doing right now. And then lately I've just been kind of playing things that I want to play. I've picked up a bunch of new music, stuff that I don't necessarily have like a performance venue for, but I just, really want to play. So lately I've been alternating a lot between listening to and playing Bach, and then listening to and playing Alex Minchek music, which is, a stark contrast, but it's quite fun for me. My cat hates it. He just runs away, but that's not really my problem. He's fine. But otherwise, I've just been, doing a bunch of reading, doing some preliminary treatise work, hoping to, get some more ideas, nailed down, and just lots of, practice fundamentals. I've been just doing a lot of long tones and scales, and, somehow that just kind of, helps focus your brain. And I feel like that has really helped me kind of, get my head around this whole situation that's going on right now. Just a little Zen moment there in your practice session. So, yeah.
Cool.
Long tone.
Yeah, long tones.
Yeah, Amy loves her long tones.
Well, they can be, I think they're really cathartic. Like I love long tones. Like it's just a really nice way to get everything flowing well and to find your sound that you want to be using, and like to kind of isolate, just like do a little drone work here and there. It's really nice.
Yeah.
I agree.
I totally agree.
They can be very meditative. Cool. Well, I guess that just leaves me. So I'll start with musically. I think that this new virtual normal has been inspiring for me to see everyone sort of acclimate to it. And though I don't want it to necessarily replace, I think a lot of us, that's a fear. We don't want this to replace live music whenever this is all over. But I think that it's really important to be doing it right now, to continue music. And also, I feel like now more of us are getting to know the technology involved, and that we do have the ability to do this. So I am inspired by that, and by the possibility of more virtual performances in the mix with live performances when this is all, when we're all back to our regular lifestyles. And I think non-musically, I've really been enjoying bettering myself during things such as doing these online chats. That's also really inspiring to me. I don't think to me, I think there's no reason that chamber groups or people shouldn't go live during regular life, because all of our friends in other areas, or even our friends who live in the same area as we do, we're really busy, right? So getting to tune in live or watch it later, I think is a really good opportunity. Other things I've been doing, I've been amping up my creativity while I work in the music lab at FSU, and I've been learning how to use InDesign and doing some design for making like FSU infographics about like things like using Zoom and getting acclimated to. We're doing some things on like MIDI keyboards, and we're all working together to sort of finalize our design and see what looks best on a poster, things like that, which are things we don't normally think about when we look at posters. And I've also been watching some very crisp reality TV, and I find it to be a great use of time, and I highly recommend it.
What shows are you watching?
So I started Marriage at First Sight, and season 10 is season 9. There have been 10 seasons, but season 9 is on Netflix. And seasons 8, I think like seasons 8 through 1 or 1 through 8 are on are on Hulu, but I just decided to work backwards because I started at 9. So basically like a couple I really like the show's producers and the experts, as they call him, that they use on the shows. Like, actually, I do think they are good at what they do, which I think it helps the show. And they pair two people together, and because of their backgrounds and they think they'll get along, etc. And then they don't meet until the wedding day, until they walk down the aisle and say, I do. And that's the first time they meet, is up at the altar. And then they go on a honeymoon, and then they move in together, and etc., etc. And then after 8 weeks, they have to decide if they want to get divorced or stay married. So it's a wild ride, and I highly recommend it.
Quality television, Lara.
It's really great. We do have some questions, so I'm going to first go to Devin's question. He says, oh, and hi, Devin. We go to school with Devin. He plays flute.
Hi, Devin.
Hey, Devin.
He says, yay for long tones. How are you all handling being a chamber group in an online format? What kind of things do you recommend for maintaining group synergy?
We do a lot of this. We've been Zooming each other a lot. And our Facebook message feed is kind of getting ridiculous at this point.
Especially the name of our group. It's like, like some kind of inside joke. It takes me like an hour to find the group every time.
I'm always like, who is that again?
I actually think it's since we're an already formed chamber group, I think we have a lot of benefits that a lot of people don't have. I mean, I know right now if I wanted to put on a solo recital and I wanted to find a pianist, like I would have to go through my friends list, get people to say okay, get them the repertoire, and then we would have to get together, but we're already formed. So we were lucky because we could just start making plans right away for that kind of thing. And I mean, actually a lot of technology now allows recording at a distance, as long as you have like just some basic microphones and like a little bit of software knowledge, you can get a lot done.
Yeah, and getting to do these Zoom sessions, like Beth said, it's not always, I mean, I think one of the really positive things that has come out of this is that we do have extra time in our day. It's not like, oh, sorry, I gotta get to rehearsal. You know, that person leaves Starbucks, and then we kind of have to like stop the meeting, you know, and reconvene when the five of us are there. But with this, it's like, well, if we like go on for 2 or 3 hours, like we're just getting to know each other while planning at the same time, and it's not necessarily something that we would have done or been able to do in our busy schedules before.
Yeah, absolutely.
And yeah, another question is from Stephen Niet. He says, hi everyone. I know all of you either graduated or are graduating soon. What are your plans for continuing to play as a group? How have you used remote tools like Zoom to keep up with rehearsing, and how effective has that been?
I'll answer the first half of that question.
Okay.
We actually just finally had this discussion. When did we talk? Tuesday, where we all sat down and talked about the possibility of for the future, since Amy's graduated and the rest of us are leaving within the year by May. So I think what we came upon is that we're going to continue as Civitasolis Reed Quintet, and whatever our future looks like, we hope that we can keep collaborating together and playing together. If that means, you know, setting aside a couple weekends a year to get together and rehearse, and then, you know, plan a tour once a year, twice a year, if that's something that's possible in the future. So we're kind of excited to see where that takes us, even if we're separated by states. We'll just be flexible with each other, I think.
Yeah. Maintaining goals. We talked about like looking towards the future and kind of writing out short and long-term goals, as you would for your own career, and just saying, as a quintet, we want to be here at this time and we want to be here at that time, and like a long-term goal, such as how often out of the year we might want to be traveling together or doing competitions and things like that.
Yeah, I mean, I think for the second part of the question too, I mean, as far as rehearsing goes, we haven't really done a lot of that yet. I think that would probably come more into play if for some reason we're more remote next semester than we hope to be. But we are lucky as a quintet that we've been together for a little while, and we have a little bit of repertoire under our belts, as well as a pretty decent sized music library of reed quintet repertoire to draw from, so that we can kind of just go back to that and just record it to give some content right now.
Yeah, for sure. I don't know if you guys have, but I haven't tried really rehearsing over a live Zoom format.
Yeah, I haven't.
I don't know how well that would work.
Yeah, I'm not sure either. I mean, internet-wise, we'd get off. But sending recordings to each other, I think, is helpful if we did for rehearsing pieces that we might play in the future, versus little virtual projects we've been doing, like where you send your part and then someone adds their part in. Those are really fun. I really like doing those. Let's move on to, I think that's a nice segue.
Wait, Lara, we got one last question from Sean. He says, howdy y'all, thank you so much for this wonderful engagement with all of us fans. Do you plan on giving any online masterclasses in the future?
Hadn't thought of that.
I think, well, we don't currently have one planned, but I think that's I think that's a great idea and something we could do.
Yeah.
I
know we've talked.
Oh,
sorry.
Ah, you go for it.
No, you go ahead.
I mean, I think what Lara was mentioning earlier, how after this quarantine that things might look different. I think a lot of people have realized that actually teaching and giving a master class over Zoom or over some other form of online communication is actually not that bad and can work really well, especially if the group is already together. So like if there was a chamber group together at a school, I don't see a problem with us giving an online master class.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea for us to input that into our plan. Ruchi says, don't forget about Schitt's Creek and Never Have I Ever for Netflix binges, Lara. Much better shows. I totally agree. Schitt's Creek is the best.
I love Schitt's Creek.
So good.
I watched it through completely.
Yeah.
I like doing what Alexis does to my cat. She goes like, boop.
Oh my goodness.
So I think that's a good, perfect. Schitt's Creek is a perfect segue into staying inspired as a quintet. And Amy, let's turn that over to you.
Sure. We've talked a little bit already about doing quintet via long distance, but it was really kind of weird at first when it started. We were in kind of a really great place as a live quintet, having our rehearsals for this many hours a week in this location. This person would get the key, this person would do this, and we had just submitted some recordings for some competitions and things. So it was really odd at first when this became more prolonged than we thought. So it took us a few weeks, especially with everyone finishing up school and us still kind of hoping that we would come back, and just different things to kind of come up with a plan. But once we did, we hit it off pretty quick. Like Beth or Lara, one was saying, like, these planning sessions started out as an hour and turned into like 2 or 3 of us hanging out and talking and getting to know each other, which was really great. And something that we wouldn't necessarily have time for in our really busy schedules at school, while also letting us plan for the future. Like, what is our goal as a quintet from now on? And what about when we all graduate and that kind of thing? It also let us plan for some projects like during quarantine, like what can we do to get some content out there and stay relevant and stay together as a group while we're apart, which has turned into these little recording projects. So we submitted some posted some recordings that we had submitted for competition a while ago. And then we started releasing these recordings where we would send each other a track, and then we would just add layer after layer onto the track. And then of course we had this idea, Lara had this idea, which was really good, the happy hour as a quintet session where we could just answer people's questions and talk about what it's like to be a chamber group and what we're doing via long distance. We also have some composition competition possibility ideas coming up. We usually do a competition every year for new composers of reed quintet works, because we really love new music and we love supporting our composer friends, and we love performing those works. And the reed quintet itself, being relatively new, doesn't actually have a lot of repertoire for it. So there is plenty of room for that and for new works to come into play. So we usually do that. We weren't able to this year. So we've been in talks. We haven't figured out exactly how those rules will work, but we do hope that any composer friends that are listening or who tune in later will stay tuned to our Facebook page, because we do want to do something with that if we can. And then the last thing, I think, just goes along with the planning and everything, just realizing what other people have said, that this is kind of a built-in break. It's a terrible thing that's happened in the world, but it's in some ways for us, because we're students, somewhat beneficial, because it's a break from the amount of work that we normally are required to do. And we just want to use that newfound free time to work on our creative projects and plan ahead for when this is over.
Awesome. Sean added some TV shows to Rushi's suggestions. 90 Fiance has been a big hit for him.
Is that 90 Day Fiance? Or 90 Fiance?
90-Day Fiance.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
All I can say about No Nick Ed is oy vey. Definitely worth it. Okay. John Kahlo has a question.
Hi, John Kahlo.
Hey, Giancarlo.
Hey, and he said, how are y'all staying focused and motivated with practicing? What a question.
Yeah, what a loaded question.
We didn't think we'd get that. No, I'm just kidding.
I don't mind. Or do you want to take it, Lara? Or I don't mind either.
I can start.
Okay.
For me, I think it's really hard, actually, because I'm more of a structured person. So, being at school and just getting it done in between things or after when I'm done is preferred. And having all this time at home, I think it's more difficult to get myself to do it. And I think also because when we have such a thing as an orchestra or a band concert, we have rehearsals leading up to it. So let's say 2 weeks before, we have to have our part ready because we have that first rehearsal. But with this, even if you're playing for a virtual concert, orchestra, quintet, duo, whatever it may be, that's just you and your recorder, and it's just that day, but you're just practicing toward that concert day. So I think it's really hard. And I think for me, just thinking about how I would be disappointed if I didn't get to things during this time that I normally have filled, like getting to things that I wouldn't normally have time to get to, whether that's a lot of long tones and that focus on fundamentals. I do feel like this is the opportunity to do that, and thinking about how I will feel after quarantine, getting that done versus not getting it done. I think that's what inspires me. How about you, Amy?
Yeah, I agree. It can be really difficult. I think just one thing that's really helped me is to record myself during my practice sessions, because I think we have goals that we're reaching, like goals that our teacher has prescribed for us to get to, or goals that we personally want to get to. And just to keep myself honest, like recording myself and listening back to see if I'm reaching those goals has been really helpful. Also, the recorder can be a great thing kind of between having a teacher and then just playing randomly on your own. I think one way to look at it is to look at it as one day we all won't have a teacher and we will be the only thing that keeps ourselves accountable. So this is actually kind of a really good practice for that, because this will end and people will get to go back to their teachers for feedback. But this is a good practice to kind of see, can you make improvement in this time where you don't necessarily have that professional feedback?
Yeah,
I think it also makes us appreciate the professional feedback that we do have the pleasure of getting, instead of looking at like a lesson as a task. I think now a lot of people will go back to school and look at it like, yes, I get to spend this hour face to face with my teacher, because I know FaceTime lessons with my teacher, while they were productive, they were sort of like a bummer at the end. I would feel like a little sad that we didn't get that face to face time.
Yeah, absolutely.
definitely. Sean asked another really great question. He said, speaking of trying to rehearse online, I have looked into online rehearsal possibilities. It seems like it requires some mics, interfaces, a stable internet connection, and a piece of software. There is some algorithm in the software that manipulates the output from one party to play in real time for the other parties involved. This sounds like a neat idea, but I don't know too much about it beyond that.
Cool. Yeah.
That's loaded. A loaded question. Or maybe it's just a statement.
I think it's a suggestion.
I think it's just
I see. Got it. Thank you, Sean.
Thanks, Sean.
Okay. Moving forward, and this kind of has to do with John Kahlo's question too, so that's helpful, is being kind to yourself. How about we turn it to you, Beth? How are you being kind to yourself?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's kind of hard because we're all, facing this issue of, I have so much time, why am I not getting more done? But I've kind of had to learn to give myself breaks, and, just like any day when you're at school, like, it's okay if you have a practice day that's just not super productive. Especially like kind of when we started this quarantine, and once things, officially got canceled, I felt like I went through like kind of a grieving period almost. In terms of just how much was canceled that I was looking forward to, and just having this huge stressor just kind of suddenly encompass everything that we were kind of working toward. So I had to just kind of let myself, be okay with that and say, like, this sucks for a while, but we're gonna, once you're done kind of moping about it, we're gonna pick ourselves up and we're gonna do something, and still, make the most of this time. So, I kind of had to allow myself to balance, this extra stress of, converting to online teaching, like implementing. I was teaching a class that I suddenly had to prepare to teach online in like 4 days. And, balance that with just, your ability to practice. Some days, sometimes it works, some days it doesn't. But for me, like once, we went online and suddenly our entire day opened up, I was just like, there's so much time, I have no structure. Like kind of what Lara was saying, like I needed a little bit of a structure. So I tried to implement a more regular schedule. So get up, not like 6 a.m. like I usually would, but, earlier, and, start being productive earlier in the day and have office hours kind of like I would if I was at school. So I had to kind of tell myself to stop responding to emails at 5 p.m., stop working and allow myself time to just relax. So that way it, even though I wasn't leaving the apartment, it still felt a little bit more normal than, it would, just kind of burning the midnight oil and going and going and going until, 1 a.m. and wondering why I wasn't being productive. In addition to that, just doing something to kind of get your mind off of what's going on. So for me, exercising and just going outside have been really helpful. Obviously, we all, want to talk to our friends, like FaceTiming and just, doing silly little things like, I think reality TV binges are good if it's, if it's a little mental health break, like by all means do it, like do something that, is going to make you happy. And like little things throughout the day, like I have this window that I've started to accumulate a bunch of plants on, like that's been kind of like a little hobby of mine. So every once in a while I'll just go, look out the window, check on the plants, just, something little like that to just kind of,
do you name them?
Through the day.
Do you name them?
I have not named the plants.
I think you should just name them all Sully.
Sully, okay.
Do you play saxophone for them?
I do. Music is apparently said to make plants grow more.
But I don't know about saxophone.
But have they heard
music,
the saxophone?
They have heard the saxophone. Yes, they're actually like my little practice area is set up by the plants, which is really nice. you know, imagine having a window when you're practicing and like seeing the outside. It's magical.
Wow.
It's so great for your mental health.
Are they all okay for cats? I feel like every plant I have is like poisonous to my
I
cat.
have cat grass, so that's like enough of a distraction that he doesn't try to eat the succulents. So
Perfect.
I don't know. He hasn't really. My
Lara's
cat doesn't know how to
cat's
jump.
different.
Yeah, that's not the case with my cat.
No, my cat he doesn't know that he can jump, so he doesn't really try too hard. He just kind of sits and stares at the plants and then walks away because he gave up because they didn't, you know, like come down to him. He's really lazy. So
Nice.
Perfect.
I don't know.
Perfect.
Anyway, moving on from the plants that apparently I need to name. In my practice sessions, I've been kind of trying to do things that are like more just for fun, because that's not something that we ever do when we're like trying to, you know, be professional musicians and work within like a time frame. So, you know, like when everything got canceled, I kind of had to make a conscious effort to say, hey, like everything I was looking forward to is not happening, but this gives me the opportunity to explore things that I've been interested in, but literally never had the time for. So that's been kind of helpful. Like, I feel like I can just spend more time on, you know, little things that I think will, you know, be helpful in the future. But right now it's just kind of a, you know, good break from the normal. I've also just been kind of like rethinking some teaching strategies since we've had to do a lot of online things. Like teaching a class online for me has been kind of different than teaching lessons online. I feel like I've had to make more of an adjustment for the class versus lessons. So just kind of figuring out ways, like I just took it as an opportunity to rethink some of my teaching strategies. You know, obviously it's been stressful, but if you just frame it as this is an opportunity to grow, like it kind of, you know, makes it nicer for you, nicer for, you know, your brain when you're going through all the stress. And then, you know, the other thing, I took dynamic integration this semester, which if you haven't taken it, I would highly recommend it. And a big part of that class is just kind of identifying like tension and stress within your body, and identifying thoughts. Like say you're having a stressed out thought and, you know, your thought train is derailing, and you can either choose to follow that, or you can acknowledge it and say, hey, this is not what I want to be following right now. And it's just like flipping off the channel on the TV. So I've been trying to implement some of those things, and I feel like it's been, you know, really helpful, especially in this, you know, more stressful environment. Like if you're just a little bit more aware of what you're thinking, what tension your body is holding, it can, you know, serve as a way to like get yourself off of that, I guess. So it's kind of how I've been doing right now.
Awesome. How about you, Amy? How are you being kind to yourself?
So, I mean, I think like Beth said, kind of everyone just handles it differently, you know, and whatever, ultimately, like whatever you need to do to just be kind to yourself and take care of your mental health, definitely do that first. How I'm handling it, well, I graduated via Zoom University, so I'm no longer a college student anymore. Dr. Humbird. Thank you, Louise. It was kind of interesting. The College of Music and FSU in general did put together a nice video for us where all of our teachers chimed in and said some really lovely things. So they were making the best of a kind of bad situation, you know. But besides that, I'm trying to view it as an opportunity rather than something that is restrictive. Just because all these bad things are happening in the world, what can I do while keeping safe and make sure others are safe to use this opportunity of time that we've been given that we just don't normally have? You know, I mean, how many times do we just have like all this free time that we've been given? So I'm really using it in my practice to focus back on clarinet fundamentals and stuff. My last few years here have been some of that, but have been a lot of prepping for one recital to the next, or preparing reed quintet music, or I have my percussion clarinet duo, the Unfiltered duo, and we're preparing music for that all the time. We usually give 2 or 3 recitals per semester where I have to leave town to go do that, and then gigging with orchestras and stuff. So it's actually been a really nice time to just get back into like we've been talking about long tones, articulation studies, doing scales, doing etudes. I want to start working on an etude project, and recording myself and listening back for consistency. Like, are all my notes matching throughout the range of the instrument and that kind of thing. And it's been really nice because I haven't had that time in the last 3 years to really, really focus on that kind of thing. So I'm basically just looking at it as a time to create new and healthy habits and to develop my new normal routine free of college.
Awesome. Yeah, it's a time we can all really work on ourselves. That can be really cool for when we come out of quarantine. Like, what if every person in the world like takes the opportunity to work on themselves in whatever way, and then it's like blissful when we get anyway.
Thanks, Laura.
One can only hope. But it's interesting with the graduation thing because, you know, some people go to their graduations and other people don't. And a lot of times we're like, oh, should I go? Like, I don't know, whatever. But like then this year it was canceled, you know, and we didn't have the opportunity to go. And I feel like in a lot of ways we saw the significance of being able to be there that day and celebrate all the work we did over the last however many years. Just
yeah, definitely. I mean, I think for me, I definitely went to my undergrad graduation. I think most people do, because there's that kind of, oh, this is the big one. You know, I graduated from college. I've hit this big milestone. And then for my master's and my performer's diploma, I didn't go because to me it was kind of just like, okay, I mean, my parents can't come up for this ceremony. Like, I've already been through a graduation. Do I really want to sit through 2 or 3 hours of them reading out people's names, you know? But I was definitely, I mean, obviously for the doctorate, I was definitely planning on going because of the hooding ceremony and that kind of thing. And to me, it meant a little more. But I do think that a lot of people don't go to these things. But after this, I do think that it might have a new significance and they might go because it might mean a little bit more to them now.
Yeah, I loved what Rob did with Professor Steepleton. Like, she came and hooded him with the mask on. I thought that was really nice of her.
Yeah.
Our next, also, if anyone, just a reminder that if anyone has any questions for the quintet, feel free to put them in the comments. And I wanted to just say a few things about looking to the future. I know we've been over some of them, but as we have said, we have some extra time now that would normally be filled with classes and rehearsals and various obligations. But now we can take that opportunity to look into the future and also have a few contingency plans for ourselves, you know, one being a plan for if we're like halfway back out of quarantine, one being a plan for it's completely remote for the next year, and another being a plan for we're all back together in the fall. So we don't really know, and having those short-term and long-term goals, and deciding how each plan looks for each of those. And sorry, I thought we got another comment, but I think we are good. So another thing that we are planning on doing is arrangements, and we haven't talked about that today yet. And so we'd like, as a quintet, to start doing arrangements of particular pieces that we like or that we think would fit well into our ensemble. So, and we want to practice arranging them ourselves, and quarantine is a perfect time to do that because it's so much easier, you know, and less expensive to do them within the group and to have that ability to do that. So we all want to practice that. And what was that one piece, Amy, that we were thinking of doing? I thought that was really cool. A string quartet.
Shostakovich String Quartet number 8, the second movement.
Yeah.
The bop.
Yeah, we're considering doing that bop. That sounds fun. But we're currently still brainstorming about that. So
yeah, and if anybody has any suggestions or requests, anybody watching that they'd like to see us do and put out during this time, feel free to drop them below or send them to us in a message for sure.
Yeah, we'll try
Yeah.
and do them if they're possible. We'll try and do them.
Yeah, some can be harder, right? All right, so if anyone has any other questions, feel free to put them in the comments. And does anyone else in the quintet have any great TV shows or any other things that are very important now to add to our conversation?
I have something I would like to
Yeah.
say.
Yeah.
So I mean, I just wanna share that how fortunate I feel of being part of this group. Of course, like before, I have played chamber music, but this is the first time that I'm part of something like this serious, where whether the organization or the structure, like Lara mentioned, like everything is entirely up to us, and we are held accountable for everything. So if we want something to happen, like prepare for a certain recording of a competition or anything, we make the plan and we all talk and listen to everybody's suggestions and we get it done. And I like how we're always thinking of new ideas and suggesting like new projects that are really fun, and that I know for sure that some of the things that we have talked about already that have been mentioned in this conversation, I know for sure that if I weren't part of the group, if I were alone, this is not something that will happen, at least in the close future. So yeah, I'm really grateful for that and for everything I'm learning here. Because yeah, so thank you guys.
Yeah, thanks,
Yeah.
Luis.
Yeah, thanks, Luis. I mean, I think that's the beauty of having your own chamber group. I mean, it's the beauty and kind of the downfall of having your own chamber group. It's you can get to do all these things, but also you are accountable for making sure, you know, they get done. But I think, I mean, that's the beauty of it. Like, if you want to have a composition competition, then have a composition competition. There's no like committee out there like on composition competitions to tell you exactly how to do it. Like, you can do it and you can tailor it to your needs and make sure that you're helping out composers and premiering their works. Or if you want to do a recording project, you can. Like, there's nothing out there that says you can't do it. It's just the sky's the limit, you know.
Just do it, like Luis's shirt says.
Just
Oh,
do
yeah.
it. Just do it.
Just do it. I wore my Adidas today. Should have worn my Nikes.
Yeah, you flunk.
Lewis says, your recordings sound great. Thanks for the awesome live chat, and hope you guys all stay safe and well. You too, Lewis.
Yeah,
Thanks
you too,
so
Lewis.
much for
Thanks.
tuning in. Jesse has a question. He says, any suggestions for composing or arranging for reed quintet? What are the do's and the don'ts?
Beth, you looked like you were
Yeah,
ready
Beth
to go.
looks like-
She
I
was
was
like,
like,
I got this.
I don't. It's something I've found very interesting. I mean, like, I feel like just as a mixed ensemble, we've learned a lot about each other. I play completely differently with this group than I would with like an all saxophone group. You know, it's kind of a beauty and a curse to play with very different instruments. You know I always have to make a conscious effort of not mirroring the group because saxophone is loud and that's very easy for us. But I don't know, with this group, I feel like we've been able to balance a little bit better. That doesn't answer any of these questions. This is just kind of off the top of my head.
I mean, it kind of does in a way, right? Because if someone wanted to write for reed quintet, they should keep in mind that it is a possibility for the saxophone to be very like overbearing. So maybe not writing up ridiculous altissimo things that would just naturally cover the group, I assume, unless, I mean, you can mitigate those things in some ways. But if we're sitting down in a very low register and Beth's like way up high, then Beth's gonna stick out. Like, that's just what's gonna happen. I think the good thing about reed quintet when you're writing or arranging for it is that we have a lot of different colors, you know? I mean, a lot of times a flute quartet or a sax quartet or a trombone quartet, they love those, or even like a string quartet really doesn't have as much of a range of color as we have. They sound great together and they blend really well and they tune really well together, and that's like their strong suit. but for us, we have like this really wide a range of tone colors that we can choose from. And I think a good arrangement and a good composition does that for our group.
And since our ranges are like pretty similar, a lot of like, at least the upper three voices, like our parts can be interchangeable to a certain degree.
Yeah.
Like we still, I mean, obviously different things are a little bit more technically challenging for certain instruments, but yeah, I feel like there's a little bit more room to play than just, you know, the traditional like soprano, alto, tenor, bass kind of voicing, at least with this kind of a group.
Yeah, and I feel like, oh, go ahead, sorry.
No, go ahead. I already talked.
I feel like when people put, you know, like trying out the different groupings of instruments together, like a lot of times the bass clarinet bassoon duo plus like the upper three working together in sort of like a Hocketing fashion or something, like tends to work really well. Or like, you know, putting the lows and the highs together and just, or putting different timbres together and just seeing what works.
Yeah, and I mean, this kind of goes a little against what I said about tone colors, but like we do have all of those things, but then also Beth and I, our sounds tend to match really fairly well. So if you wanted to write something that sounded more like one line kind of a thing, that would be a good way to do it. We play stuff together all the time and one right off of each other, and our sounds tend to blend well together.
Yeah. We have two more questions that I think we can get to before we finish. Jessica says, Jessica Pollock, also clarinet. Hi, Jessica. Says, how do you find or choose each other to make sure your goals for the group really match?
That's a tricky question. I mean, actually, I guess this is the third like iteration of the main Civitasolis group. Actually, 3 of the members are new this year: Beth, Bridget, and Luis. So, I mean, I think that's a hard question to answer because we've been through so many changes. But I think just having a conversation right off the bat, of course, you want them to be a good player, of course, but also having a conversation right off the bat with someone you're considering adding to your group or considering creating a group with, to make sure that your goals and their goals can either mesh or are really close to the same thing. Because you don't want one person in the group to really, really want to do competitions and one other person in the group to really hate competitions, and just be completely unwilling to do them, because then you'll never agree to do competitions, or the other person will get dragged along and hate the entire process.
Right.
But I'm sure other people have more things to add to that.
Yeah, I was going to say, oh, go ahead.
No, you're good, Lara. Go ahead.
I was going to say, just continuing to have those conversations even after whoever it is new to the group, or whoever, even if you have a group where it's 5 original people, I think continuing to have those conversations that people's goals are in line, because we're all kind of learning from each other about how each other communicates. And I think in a group, as you get to know each other better, you just become more and more open with each other. And I think that's important too.
Yeah, I feel like we've had those conversations multiple times, even since August, like sit down coffee chats, or even like the conversation that we've had over Zoom since this whole thing started, where we just talk about the goals and have an open and honest. I think that's the key.
Yeah, exactly. Paul Hayes says, what are some
Paul?
Hey, Paul.
He's my percussion.
Oh, nice.
Partner.
Sweet.
Sorry.
He says, what are some approaches you have for marketing and increasing visibility for your quintet?
Yeah, that's a good one. Huh?
No, I was going to say, I think Amy's got this one.
Maybe. We're always trying new things. I think definitely you always, for your group, I mean, Paul and I have talked about this as well, you always want to have a social media presence. And you want to try and post consistently. We're building to that, and we've been doing more and more of that. Having different types of interactions on social media. For instance, it's actually true that videos get way more views and way more interactions. And by interactions, I mean likes or shares and comments than anything else does. And photos get way more interactions than just pure text. You want to avoid these like long blocks of just pure text when you're promoting yourself, because people, especially today, although maybe with quarantine they do have time to read it, but most of the time when people are scrolling through Facebook, they're like sitting in the hallway having their practice break or on their lunch break, and they're just scrolling really fast. So you want to have something that catches the attention. So posting recordings, having video interactions like this, things like that can be really helpful. There are scientifically proven certain times of day that are better for posting, and they're different on Facebook and Instagram. I don't keep up with Twitter, so I don't know. But so like for instance, Monday through Friday on Facebook, you want to try and do something that's around between 12 to 2, because that's people's lunch hours. But on Instagram, it tends to be an hour later for whatever reason. I'm not sure. But it is. And on the weekends, it's even later because people sleep in and wake up later, and because they're on Facebook more of the day. So things like that. Although I have really noticed, because I am a marketing person for American Single Read Summit and for other things, although American Single Read Summit hasn't been posting as much yet over quarantine, but I have been noticing that things that are posted in quarantine seem to have different rules. And I feel that that's because people have very different schedules now that they're in quarantine. So I would say that's different, but once things go back to being more normal, it'll probably settle back in.
Awesome. Well, I think that's a good note to leave off on. And I want to thank all of you for being here in the quintet. And I want to thank all of our viewers and everyone who asked questions. This was a lot of fun, and we are looking forward to being back here 1 week from today, this coming Friday at 4 p.m. for our next happy hour.
Yeah.
So we will see you guys then.
Bye.
Bye.